have a shorter preamble leading up to the questions, so that we can actually have the opportunity to give everybody present an opportunity to have their say. With those few words, colleagues, I'd like to welcome you all and just to acknowledge your presence in Cape Town and in Pretoria, and to also welcome Minister Radebe, who will be taking us through the cabinet statement this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald, and the people of the media, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow South Africans. Cabinet at its meeting yesterday wishes all students well as they embark on their final year examinations. The class of 2016 are encouraged to stay focused as they embark on 2016 National Senior Certificate Examinations, which officially starts on the 24th of October next week and ends on the 29th November. Cabinet wishes to reiterate its call for the country to support all efforts to save 2016 academic program. These efforts, led by government through the Ministerial Task Team, working with students, parents, universities, and stakeholders, are a demonstration of our collective commitment to find solutions to normalize our education sector. Cabinet shares the sentiments expressed by students with regards to the challenges they face on high cost of tuition fees, accommodation, textbooks, transport, and living expenses. If the academic year is lost, universities and colleges do not reach a finality this year, almost 1 million matriculants will not be admitted into higher education in 2017. The ripple effect is such that all students from first year to final year would be affected, and ultimately our economy, as no new skilled graduates will enter the job market. Consequently, those who would have graduated as medical doctors, engineers, accountants, teachers, and various professions will no longer be in a position to enter the economy. Cabinet fully supports the rights to education that are contained in the Freedom Charter, the country's constitution, and prioritized in the National Development Plan, our Vision 2030. We further support the right to access to higher education, particularly for the poor. The Freedom Charter says higher education and technical training shall be open to all by means of state allowances and scholarships awarded on basis of merit. Our country's constitution states everyone has the right to further education, which the state through reasonable measures must make progressively available and accessible. In appreciation of the magnitude of the challenges in higher education, President Zuma has further broadened the composition of the Ministerial Task Team with inclusion of ministers of human settlements, communications, finance, and social development. Our government has received several proposals that have been put forward by various constituencies and stakeholders. A technical process is underway to evaluate them, and once work is completed, options will be provided to address the current challenges. Our government will further take steps to make resources available to all NSFAS qualifying students progressively to cover the full cost of study at universities and TVET colleges over the long term. Our government will also develop mechanisms to address the challenges faced by the missing middle students who don't qualify under current NSFAS rules but are unable to afford the full cost of study without some form of assistance. All of these will be phased at a pace and scale that depends on the rate of growth in enrollment and available resources. The Presidential Commission of Inquiry into Higher Education and Training is continuing with its work and will assist government to come up with a long-term solution for access to higher education, particularly for the poor. The Minister of Finance will table the medium-term budget policy statement on the 26th of October that will set out the broad fiscal framework over the medium term. In the 2016-17 financial year, government, through the Minister of Higher Education and Training, has allocated tremendous amount of resources to higher education, which saw the Department of Higher Education and Training receiving a budget allocation of 49.2 billion rand. Cabinet believes that it is only through our investment in education as a country that we will be able to make meaningful progress in addressing the triple challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. Government has responded to the pleas of students and will subsidize, as Minister Nzimande highlighted, the 2017 fee adjustment of up to 8% to pay for the fee increase through a gap funding grant on behalf of all poor, working class, and the missing middle students, that is, students with a family household income of up to 600,000 rand per annum. This means that both the NSFAS qualifying students and the missing middle students will experience a no-fee increase, as government will pay the percentage fees adjustment. This subsidy will amount to about 2.5 billion rand, which covers over 70% of all undergraduate students. All stakeholders must immediately work towards creating conditions and a conducive climate for the academic program to resume without delay. To ensure the progressive realization of the right to further education, our government will develop a roadmap working with all relevant stakeholders for the transformation of universities and TVET colleges to create opportunities for access, opportunities for success, financing, and support for students and institutions. Several stakeholders, including amongst others students, banks, and business, have presented different proposals on how we can finance higher education, particularly for the poor. Therefore, the ministerial task team will bring all these stakeholders under one roof to develop a roadmap that will pave a way for a solution. Cabinet is pleased and welcomes the resumption of classes in many of our universities and urges students to return to class. This is a critical period for the academic program, with examinations around the corner. Our government believes that the concerns of students can be addressed through dialogue while the academic program is underway. Cabinet remains deeply concerned at the outbreak of violent student protest on some university campuses around our country. While the right to protest is protected under our Constitution, there is no room for violence, no room for intimidation and destruction of property. The legitimate student leadership must do everything in their power to isolate the criminal elements which have tended to undermine genuine demands of students. All stakeholders must do everything in their power and take every step that are necessary to save this academic program, as the consequences, as we've highlighted, are very dire to the economy, to the students, as well as to the matriculants. Education is everyone's responsibility. Let us all work together collectively to bring about normality to higher education for the future of our children and for the future of our country. Cabinet welcomed the 3 billion rand investment by Marriott International that will see the world's largest hotel group complete 5 new hotels, 3 in Cape Town and 2 in Johannesburg. This announcement demonstrates the investor confidence in the country and positive future prospects for local economy. Our country was named as the best country for debt management and sovereign bond issuance in sub-Saharan Africa by Emerging Markets newspaper, an affiliate of the IMF World Bank annual meetings. This award comes after the World Bank acknowledged our country's excellence in debt dynamics. These accolades are a testament to the success the country continues to enjoy in global capital markets and the prudent manner in which our economy is being managed. The first Kenyan state visit by a South African head of state, President Zuma, since democracy, included a business delegation to the Kenya-South African Business Forum, which explored investment and trade opportunities. Memoranda of understanding were signed for port cooperation, biodiversity conservation and management, and the Lamu Port Southern Sudan-Ethiopia Transport Corridor. The second session of the Binational Commission between South Africa and the Republic of Namibia underscored our collective commitment with a range of bilateral, regional, and international issues being reviewed. The Memorandum of Understanding on Higher Education has been finalized, including the signing of the terms of reference of the Joint Committee of Experts on the Orange River boundary. Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa's working visit to Vietnam and Singapore was used to unlock future areas of trade and investment to attract Singaporean state-owned enterprises to invest in South Africa through the public-private partnerships in line with our NDP and the 9-point plan. Our commitment was also secured for Singapore to assist South Africa with skills development and to increase the number of training courses for South African students offered under the Singapore Cooperation Program. President Zuma addressed on Tuesday the annual South African Heads of Mission Conference, which provided a platform for our heads of state mission to share ideas on issues and priorities which better enable them to continue representing our country. As our representatives abroad, they have a responsibility to build friendships and partnerships that will help us achieve our goals of the National Development Plan, that of inclusive growth, jobs, and decent life for our people. In responding to the needs of communities and businesses, our cabinet colleague, Minister Munkonyane, will turn the sword on the construction of Phase 1 of the 18 billion rand Vaal Gamagara water project this Friday tomorrow. On completion of Phase 1, beneficiaries will include 14 livestock farms, 12 mines, solar parks, and the communities of Katu, Olifantshoek, Hotazel will be benefiting, including a population of almost 24,000 people. The launch of the 49 million rand first phase of the revitalized Isithebe Industrial Park in Mandeni, KwaZulu-Natal, forms part of the revitalization of industrial parks program of the Department of Trade and Industry and has been reprioritized. The aim is to regenerate state-owned industrial parks across our country in order to promote industrialization and increase their contribution to job creation and our country's economic growth. Industries operating from Isithebe will contribute significantly to the economy of the area, providing over 20,000 jobs. During this phase, 15 small micro-medium enterprises were appointed for the project to the value of 6.3 million rand, with 162 people being employed. The announcement that South Africa will benefit from a new trade deal with the European Union will see improved access for South African products, having preferential market access to the EU. The Economic Partnership, the EPA, under the SADC EU EPA framework replaces the trade provisions of the existing bilateral trade agreement between South Africa and the EU. The Commission for the Conservation of Southern Bluefin Tuna has increased South Africa's total allowable catch of the Southern Bluefin Tuna allocation from 150 tons to 450 tons for the 2018-2020 fishing season. This is essential to South Africa's job creation priorities, as it will provide permanent employment in the fisheries sector and will inject much needed export revenue for our country. The appointment of successful bidders by the Department of Energy for the first coal-based independent power producer program, the IPP, is a critical part of government's initiative to secure the country's energy supply. The two successful bidders will add 863 megawatts of electricity to our grid in the next 5 years. This appointment also attracts an investment of more than 40 billion rand, which will be used to unlock infrastructure in the energy sector, stimulate local procurement, and create 6,600 jobs during the construction and 13,500 through operations. While our country's energy build plan incorporates the development of fossil fuel assets, our country is committed to the transition to a low-carbon economy with priority to clean energy initiatives. Through this renewable energy IPP, about 6,300 megawatts of electricity have been procured from 102 independent power producers in 6 bid rounds. Of these, 2,200 megawatts of electrical generation capacity from 44 IPP projects has already been connected to the national grid. As the Transport Month unfolds, a number of key transport infrastructure projects and initiatives are being rolled out to better connect our people and places, which is creating new jobs and changing the way South Africans travel. In this regard, Cabinet recognizes the 24 million rand investment by the Gauteng Department of Roads and Transport to repair the D904 road, which is also known as the Old Everton Road. This rehabilitation of this road will lead to improved traveling time and ensure better road safety for motorists, cyclists, as well as pedestrians. The successful hosting of the 5th Africa Internet Governance Forum in Durban saw the meeting finalizing the continental position which supports the attainment of our Agenda 2063 goals ahead of the Internet Governance Forum that is going to be held in Mexico in December of this year. South Africa signed the Multi-Party Administrator Service Agreement with Donor Foundation. The interventions by government to combat corruption, malpractice, and hold industries accountable has led to an agreement with 7 listed construction companies on a program of initiatives which will accelerate transformation in the industry. The agreement has a number of elements, including financial contribution for development projects, transformational commitments in the sector, a framework to settle claims by the public sector, and integrity commitments by chief executive officers of industry. Key foundations of the agreement include a 1.4 billion rand fine that was imposed by the competition authorities, which will be paid by the companies into the National Revenue Fund. A further 1.5 billion rand will be contributed to a fund to support social investment initiatives that are targeting previously disadvantaged artisans. A transformation commitment will also be introduced by each of the 7 companies, which may take the form of either an equity model where at least 40% of the shares of the company will be sold to Black South Africans, or the partner model where a company will work with up to 3 Black-owned construction partner companies to help them generate a turnover that is equal to 25% of its own turnover. This commitment has been valued in excess of 9 billion rand annual turnover by the end of the agreement period. An integrity commitment will be signed by each of the CEOs that commits to a wide-ranging steps to ensure no collusive or corrupt practices in the company in its dealings with competitors, government, or private sector claimants. These settlement agreements provide for certain formal processes to be finalized within the next few weeks, and these are being processed and attended to as this announcement is being concluded. South Africans are encouraged to engage with the information being shared through the 2015-16 annual report that have been presented by various government departments to Parliament. This information demonstrates the implementation of government program of actions as well as the progress on the medium-term strategic framework and the implementation of the National Development Plan. Cabinet also encourages South Africans to share their views on the economy and other issues they would like government to highlight in the upcoming medium-term budget policy statement to be presented by the Minister of Finance on Wednesday next week. Contributions can be sent through Facebook, National Treasury South Africa, Twitter at Treasury RSA, or oral representations, and also on the National Treasury website. Key Cabinet decisions. Cabinet approved the broad principles of the National Transport Master Plan 2050, which we'll see, and it also approved for submission the revised international telecommunications regulations to Parliament for ratification. Cabinet also approved for submission to Parliament the World Radio Communications Conference to Parliament for ratification in line with our Section 231 of the Constitutions. Cabinet also approved for submission to Parliament the final acts of the International Telecommunications Union Plenipotentiary Conference of Guadalajara 2010. We also briefed on the progress being made on the establishment and the implementation of the Broadband War Room. The August 2016 Cabinet Lekgotla had resolved that the Broadband War Room must be established to expedite the implementation of South Africa Connect, the national broadband policy. As part of the terms of reference of this war room, several critical issues were identified that have a direct impact on the successful rollout of affordable, fast, reliable, and secure internet. And these include addressing the delays in the allocation of high-demand spectrum, broadband connectivity, rollout and funding, ineffective market structures, fast-tracking the digital broadcasting migration, e-governance, IC in state-owned companies, to mention but a few. Cabinet also approved that the Paris Agreement on climate change be submitted to Parliament for ratification. This Paris Agreement is a legal instrument that will further guide the process for universal action on climate change. It brings all nations into a common cause of acting collectively to the threat of climate change in the context of sustainable development and efforts to eradicate poverty. It sets out the goal of holding the increase in global average temperature to well below 2 degrees Celsius. This Paris Agreement will enter into force on the 4th of November 2016, 30 days after the date on which at least 55 parties to the convention, accounting in total at least 55% of the total global greenhouse gas emissions, have deposited their instruments for ratification. Cabinet also approved the draft National Policy on Extension and Advisory Services for implementation. We also approved the final draft of the revised and refined medium-term strategic framework for 2014-2019 on outcome to a long and healthy life for all South Africans, and this will serve as the building block to implement our Chapter 9 of the National Development Plan. The 2015 Management Performance Assessment Tool through the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation will also provide consolidated learning of the MPET assessment and case studies analysis for the years 2011 until 2015. This will be distributed in the short while. The following bill was also approved: the Prevention and Combating of Hate Crimes and Hate Speech Bill, which is going to be published for public comment. This bill seeks to create offenses of hate crimes and hate speech and to put in place measures to prevent and combat these offenses. The aim is to address the increasing number of racial incidents and to further address other types of criminal conduct motivated by bias, prejudice, or intolerance in the form of hate crimes and hate speech which occurred in the recent past. This is also in line with our NDP, which highlights the need for sustained campaigns against racism, sexism, homophobia, and xenophobia and all our people. Upcoming events. The Breast Cancer Awareness Month in October also represents a national effort by public and private healthcare to raise awareness of this disease. Early detection of the condition can lead to effective treatment. All women and men should conduct regular self-examination and undergo screening through their nearest healthcare facility. The Department of Health will host the 40th World Hospital Congress of the International Hospital Federation under the theme Addressing the Challenge of Patient-Centered Care and Safety, which will take place in Durban from the 31st of October till the 3rd of November. This Congress will provide a unique global forum to facilitate multidisciplinary exchange of knowledge, expertise, and experiences in the health sector management and service delivery. Key issues in the environment. Cabinet has affirmed its support for Minister of Finance Pravin Gordhan, who under Section 35 of the Constitution is innocent until proven otherwise by a court of law. Cabinet remains confident in the country's criminal justice system and the fair and just judicial processes which have defined our democratic era. These processes must be allowed to take their course. The outcome from the 8th BRICS Summit, which was held in Goa in India, saw BRICS leaders hold interactive round-table discussions on strengthening intra-BRICS cooperation and reflecting on global issues such as international conflicts, the fight against terrorism, reform of the global system of governance, especially the democratization of the UN and the Bretton Woods institutions. The adoption of this declaration and action plan highlighted the strong foundation that BRICS has made in terms of establishing institutional mechanisms for tangible cooperation. the possibility of setting up an independent BRICS rating agency based on market-oriented principles in order to strengthen the global governance architecture was also welcome. During the visit in Goa, the Kipla Pharmaceutical Company and the Dube Industrial Development Authorities signed an agreement to establish a BAO logistics facility. This 1.3 billion rand investment will result in the first plant on the African continent producing affordable anti-cancer drugs based on biotechnology processes. Cabinet pays tribute to the people of Mozambique for their solidarity and sacrifice in our struggle for freedom. Deputy President Ramaphosa and Minister of Arts and Culture Mthethwa attended the commemoration of the 30th anniversary service of the late President Samora Machel, the founding father and president of Mozambique, who died under suspicious circumstances in Mbuzini. In honoring the memory of great African leaders like Samora Machel, Julius Nyerere, Oliver Tambo, Nelson Mandela, we'll remember the leadership to them meant dedicated service to Africa to advance the interest of the people of this continent. We are building on our common history and enjoy strong diplomatic and economic relations to boost economic growth, create employment, and reduce inequality. The creation of the Maputo Development Corridor, which links the port of Maputo with our country's industrial heartland, is a vital part of our effort to promote trade and investment and foster regional integration. Cabinet extends its good wishes to Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane on her appointment as the Public Protector of the Republic of South Africa for a period of 7 years with effect from the 15th of October. Cabinet also is confident that Advocate Mkhwebane will serve the nation well and continue to act in the best interest of all South Africans. Cabinet also expressed its gratitude to Advocate Thuli Madonsela for serving the country and placing the office of the Public Protector uppermost in the minds of South Africans. Cabinet joins South Africa's media in commemorating the anniversary of Media Freedom Day, known as Black Wednesday, and commends the media industry for the role they continue to play in strengthening our country's democracy. On the 19th of October 1977, the apartheid regime ordered the World and the Wicked newspaper to cease publication and spark mass detention and banning of journalists. Our democratic constitution explicitly protects our hard-fought media freedoms that are recognized as playing a critical role in the advancement of national unity and equality for all. As we reflect on the progress South Africa has made in entrenching media freedom, Cabinet congratulates SANEF on its 20th anniversary, which will be celebrated next week. Cabinet extended the hand of solidarity to the people of Nigeria and to the families of the girls who remain in captivity, following the news that 21 of the school girls who were kidnapped by Boko Haram militants had been freed. Cabinet calls on the international community to renew its efforts in assisting the Nigerian authorities to secure the girls' release, in particular from all African countries, to lend support in assisting Nigeria in finding the missing children. Cabinet joins President Zuma in extending condolences to the government and people of Haiti and other nations in the Caribbean following the destructive Hurricane Matthew that claimed the lives of hundreds of people and destroyed infrastructure, and also extending condolences to the government and people of the Kingdom of Thailand following the passing on of King Bhumibol Adulyadej. We also extend our condolences to the family and friends of our struggle icon Mewarem Kopin, who founded the South African Committee for the Release of Political Prisoners and was amongst the first supporters of the Release Mandela campaign. Mewarem Kopin was also the former president of the Natal Indian Congress and the chairperson of the Phoenix Settlement Trust, founded by Mahatma Gandhi in 1904. Cabinet also noted that the President has received and accepted the resignation of Mr. Krish Naidu and Mr. Vusi Mavuso as members of the board of the South African Broadcasting Corporation, the SABC. As we know, the Portfolio Committee has initiated steps to begin its inquiry into the board of the SABC with regard to its fitness to hold office in terms of Section 15A of the Broadcasting Act. Cabinet congratulated the following: South Africa's ambassador to Vienna, Mr. Tebogo Siakulu, on his appointment as the chair of the Board of Governors of the International Atomic Energy Agency. This board, as we know, of governors is a major policy-making organ of the IAEA. Pax Tau, on his election as the president of the United Cities and Local Government Organization, which is an umbrella body for local government in the world, which decision was taken on the 15th October in Colombia. Congratulations to Antonio Guterres on his election to the position of United Nations Secretary General with effect from the 1st of January 2017. Mr. Guterres brings a wealth of experience, having served as Prime Minister of Portugal from 1995 to 2002, as well as the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees from June 2005 till December of 2015. We also congratulate all South African journalists who claimed recognition at the recently held CNN Multi-Choice African Journalist Awards. Also congratulating Mamelodi Sundowns, the Brazilians, for their 3-0 win against the Egyptian team Zamalek, which was the first leg of the African Championship League final. Cabinet calls on all South Africans to unite and support Sundowns to bring home the star. Appointments. All appointments are subject to verification of qualifications and relevant clearance. Mr. Siphamandla Kenneth Mthethwa as the Chief Financial Officer of Sentech. The board of the South African Diamonds and Precious Metals Regulator, which is going to be chaired by Dr. Sipho David Manese, and other board members. We'll see them in the statement. Non-executive members of the Road Accident Fund, the RAF, with Dr. Ntutuko Pengu as the chairperson and Mr. Dawood Kuvadia as the deputy chair. Lieutenant General Yolisa Matakata as the Deputy National Head of the Directorate of Priority Crimes Investigation, and all the provincial heads of Directorate for Priority Crime Intelligence that are indicated there.
Thank you very much, Minister. As I did commit, we would make sure that we go through the statement. It's currently being distributed, so you will see that the full details that the Minister went through are actually contained in the statement. I'm going to start then in Tswane. I can see by show of hands, please, when you do respond, introduce yourself, press the button there so that the mic is activated so we can hear you. First, second, third. We take those first please.
Good afternoon, Minister. Peter from Jacaranda FM. I just quickly wanted to ask two things. Firstly, why the Finance Minister was only appointed to the Interministerial Task Team on Higher Education now, especially in light of the ANC's call this week? And then secondly, just about the discussions with regards to that you touched on in your briefing just now about government's confidence in the finance minister. To what extent were those charges discussed, and did you also perhaps discuss the matter between the finance minister and the Gupta family? Thank you.
Gordon Gambi from ENCA. Minister, regarding the finance minister, the issues surrounding the finance minister, what will be cabinet's attitude towards the NPA should it drop charges against the finance minister, given the bloodbath that we saw in the market? Should there be any repercussions, in other words? Then also regarding the student protest, there's a feeling from protesting students that their leaders are being targeted and that their leaders are receiving odd visits from agents, state security agents. And so the question is, are intelligence operatives being used to try and suppress these protests? Then lastly, the former public protector, Thuli Madonsela, yesterday expressed concern at what she calls, and I quote her, the police are being used or are being placed as a buffer between the people and the government. What do you make of that statement from the public protector? Thank you. Well, former public protector.
Sindisiwe Twala from ANN7. I think the others have touched on the earlier question, but anyway, did Cabinet support Minister Gordon's move to court to get a declaratory order to the Gupta Bank matter? And another one, we're also hearing the Fees Must Fall movement, SRC, saying, even in court yesterday, that the non-release of one of their leaders in Mzabo Dlamini could be politically connected. And we're also hearing that there might be a third force in the protest action that is actually taking place. Has government or cabinet rather found out who the third force could be, because it's been cited by students as well as government? And another question, is it politically motivated?
So is what politically motivated?
The non-release of one of their leaders and the targeting of certain leaders.
Okay, thank you. Yes, should I take it off?
On the first question, as a statement indicates, the task team was established by the President last week, Tuesday. And in view of the interactions that we have had as a task team with various stakeholders and the reports that we've been making to the President as well as to Cabinet, the President has decided to broaden the composition of the task team. So Minister of Finance is part of those that have been added to the task team because of some of the issues that are raised. I've mentioned in the statement of Cabinet that there are various proposals that various constituencies are bringing forward, which also with the specific reference to the Minister of Finance that might require his attendance to this meeting of the IMC. But having said that, an IMC by its nature, even though there are usually a limited number of ministers, nothing prevents the task team from calling upon colleagues and departments that on a case-by-case basis can be able to bring value into the role of any operation of the task team. We never discuss charges because it's not the prerogative of government to discuss charges of any member. What was being said by Cabinet was the principle that is enunciated in our Constitution in terms of Section 35 to support our colleague as he is undergoing this period at this moment. On the issues, we cannot foretell what is going to be happening, so the attitude of the Cabinet as to what will happen, whether the NDPP will withdraw the charges or not, that will be discussed at the point that it happens, if it does happen. SAPS targeting students, I think one police officer is here, Brigadier Radebe. He should be able to respond to that. But from a government point of view, we don't interfere in the operations of the police. So I may not be able in a position to know whether it is happening there, but in broad outline, I would not understand why SAPS will be doing that. But the police are here, they will explain for themselves. I'm not aware of members of the state security agencies who are operating there, because by their nature, the state security agencies, they operate in secret. I'm not aware that they are involved in any case. So, but the minister responsible may be able to answer that question. On the buffer between the people and students, certainly not. The police, as our understanding, they've been going to these campuses because of the violence that has been taking place there, as well as the destruction of property. So they are doing their normal law enforcement agency role. Cabinet did not discuss the issue of the declaratory order that is being sought by the Minister of Finance. I did indicate when I was asked on last Sunday by the business day that our understanding is that any minister in any portfolio is within their rights to seek for legal clarity in a court of law. But that has nothing to do with the cabinet at all. On the issue of Mr. Mcebo Dlamini, this is a judicial matter. As we know, in terms of our constitutional democracy, the judiciary is independent and is subject only to the constitution and the law, and they take decisions without fear, favor, or prejudice. Third force, I'm not aware of a third force myself. What we are dealing with here are basically genuine grievances of students that we are trying to address. That is why the President established this task team in order to ensure that we work with all stakeholders, including the students, to bring about normality in our institutions of higher learning. But it is evident that there are some criminal elements. For example, we were informed on Sunday that there were about 9 people who were arrested at Wits University. 5 of them were not students. So it is clear that there are people outside of campuses who might be involved in some of these mayhem at universities. But Brigadier Radebe is here to speak.
Sorry.
Thank you, Minister.
Can I make a proposal, Minister? We are pressed for time. We can allow the Cape Town colleagues to ask you some questions. Brigadier Radebe will be here, and
okay,
she will be available to the media afterwards. But I'd like to give Cape Town an opportunity. Sorry, this one with you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, DG.
Okay, Cape Town.
Thanks, DG. We have a lot of questions here. We'll take 5 in this round first. Yanyan with the first one. Wendon and Siwa, Paul and Linda. We'll come back to you, colleagues.
Thank you, sir. Yanyan Yuval for the Sunday Times. Regarding Minister Gordhan, does Cabinet also agree and support his view that he can't get a fair hearing from the National Prosecuting Authority under its current leadership? If not, to what extent does that support of Minister Gordhan reach, and to what extent does it not reach? What do you support in what he has said, and what don't you? Secondly, we have seen in the Sunday Times on Sunday that at least 3 of your cabinet colleagues, the Minister of Public Works, the Minister of Health, and the Minister of Tourism, had very serious thoughts regarding the actions of the NPA in charging the Minister of Finance. What was the discussion like, and to what extent are those strong words by especially the Minister of Health supported by Cabinet?
Thanks, Minister Wendell from Reuters. Minister, I just wanted to get a sense, a sort of a final word, as it were, from yourself as the representative of Cabinet. We seem to be getting mixed messages from government regarding the IPP. You've mentioned it in here, but it seems if you two questions basically. Is IPP the official policy of the government, and is ESCOM, who is a part of government, must they adhere to government policy to procure? And I'm asking this question because a very senior member of ESCOM's executive today said that they are not going to sign any more IPP deals. But the window around for the generation official Coco said very clearly, we're not going to sign it. So just a sense from yourselves, please. Is IPP official government policy, or should we be signing this? And the second question relates again to ESCOM. On what mandate are they the procuring agency for nuclear? Given the fact that we are, as you've indicated on more than one occasion, that this thing is still it's still running its course, it hasn't been finalized. To what extent can ESCOM, and under whose mandate can they then procure nuclear and forge ahead with that process? How does that work, please?
And this is Makinana from City Press. Minister, on fees must fall. I don't know if you just contradicted the Minister of Higher Education, because he has been for weeks insisting that there is a third force behind this whole movement. Now you just said you don't know anything about the third force. Can you give us clarity? Is there a third force behind fees must fall, or is there not a third force? Or does the cabinet have no position on that third force issue? And on Minister Gordon, was the cabinet united in its support of this minister? Because some of his colleagues, like Minister Van Gooyen, like Minister Mokonyane, Zwane, Dlamini, they've spoken out publicly in the media, questioning him, questioning the whole fact that he is questioning that he was under investigation. So what, did you vote on this? Was there unanimity on supporting him? Thanks.
Paul? Good day, Minister. Paul Becchiotto from Bloomberg. Just on the higher education issue, if this year's academic year is not programmed or whatever, is not completed, and as you said, there are about 1 million matriculants or high school leavers who will not be accommodated, we'll have people like doctors not graduating, engineers and so on. What concern is there in Cabinet that this could impact on our country ratings that are due out in December? And then secondly, just on energy again, Minister Tina Joemat-Pettersson had expressed here in Parliament a wish that she could have tabled the two important energy documents, the IEP and the IRP, to Cabinet, but that was postponed. Do you know when those two documents will be presented to Cabinet, and when, if so, when could we expect an approval or green light from Cabinet on them? And then finally, back to the fees must fall issue. In the run-up to the elections, Police Minister Nhleko was very visible in running a task team about the violence there. But in the fees must fall, he's been all but absent. In fact, I can't remember him ever coming to brief us from a political head point of view of the police on what is happening. He hasn't issued any statements. Do you think it's time that maybe Minister Nhleko comes along and gives us some statement and idea of what the political imperative for the police is? Thank you.
Linda, the last one.
Good morning, Minister. Linda for Business Day. Just on the 7 construction companies, do you have the names available? And isn't it a bit of a double whammy that they be fined and then all these concessions are extracted from them as a further punishment? And then on the hate speech, what is the lack in the law at the moment that requires this speech? This law. Don't we have enough laws to deal with these kinds of offences? Thank you.
Back to you, Divya.
On the first question, as I told you, we in Cabinet we do not deal with the merits of what the NPA has decided. Our support is based on the Constitution, Section 35, which I indicated in our Cabinet statement. On individual ministers commenting, The statement that I've just issued is a reflection of a cabinet decision. So this is a unanimous position of cabinet. On IPPs, that is still government policy, a strong government policy. I've indicated in this that we've just passed this Paris Agreement to be ratified in Parliament, which is a very strong statement by government that we are moving towards a low carbon economy. And IPP will help us to move towards those targets that have been set by the United Nations, included in the Paris Agreement. ESCOM reports to the Minister of Public Enterprises. The issue of ESCOM being the agency is going to be discussed in the next cabinet, which I want to answer the other question on when this is going to be finalized. In the next cabinet, the Minister of Energy will be bringing forth those issues for finalization by cabinet. I've already answered about the third force as the chair of this task team, that we are dealing basically with genuine grievances from the students, which we are addressing as government. If there are elements that are criminal or otherwise, we're going to look at that as we are ongoing. Whether we're united in our support for the Minister of Finance, I've already indicated that. We are concerned about the issue of a possibility of a credit downgrade. That is why in the beginning of this year, the President appointed Minister Gordon and Jabu Mabuza to go on a roadshow to ensure that we do everything within our power to avert a possibility of a credit downgrade. That position still prevails today. The role of the Minister of Police, the JCPS, they work as a collective. Sometimes when the Minister Nhleko is not there, the other colleagues of his will be present. The names of the 7 construction companies, I can provide them, but that arises from the whole issue that was before the Competitions Tribunal. I don't have a list with me there, but I'm sure, Carol, you know those 7 companies that were before the Competitions Commission. I think one of them was WBHO, etc., etc., etc.
Thank you, Minister. Can I give Sonia an opportunity to take a round of questions? And then we can take the one question that has been addressed to Sally. And if there are no other questions, then I'll bring it to an end in Sonia and to Cape Town so we can wrap up. Okay.
Thank you very much, Koli, again from ENCA. Minister, was there a discussion around the IPID head, Robert McBride, in Cabinet, given that it would appear now that he's back in his position, but there seems to be disagreement between who he reports to exactly. Is it the Minister of Police, or should he report to Parliament? Was there a discussion around him at all?
Any other questions?
To Cape Town as well.
Cape Town, on your side?
Yes, we do. DG will take Gavis, Chantal, Babalo, and then
Okay.
you'll be the last one.
Thanks, Gay Davis, Eyewitness News. Minister, with relation to the President accepting the resignations of the 2 board members of the SABC, what was said about the situation that the public broadcaster is in, where its board is now in court, and where the governing party has called on the Minister of Communications, Faith Mutambi, to get the board members to resign or to dismiss them? And is Cabinet, I mean, there seems to be just such a disconnect between what Cabinet says and what ministers say outside in the public. that I think we need a little bit more of an explanation on how a collective cabinet statement can be made that directly contradicts statements made by individual members of that cabinet in the media. Is cabinet still functioning as a collective? Is cabinet still leading the government of this country? And more specifically, does cabinet still have any influence as a whole, as a collective, over the state-owned enterprises in this country? Thank you.
Sandela?
Hi, Minister, just about the law on hate speech, would this include hate speech via social media? And then just when will the bill be published? And then also, was the Minister of Mineral Resources, was he asked to explain the status of the Optimum Rehabilitation Fund?
Babalo?
Hi, Minister. Babalo Ndenze from the Sunday Times. Just further clarity on that question that was asked earlier on Ministerial Task Team. Why was Minister Gordon not included in the first place? Because one would imagine that he would be the first name there, and then higher education, Mr. Nzimande, etc. His personnel was a minor oversight on the president's part. If you could just clarify why he didn't feature there until a week later, because there are many interpretations out there, Minister. Thank you.
Hi, Minister Jan Langer from Report newspaper. I've heard what you said about the charges against Mr. Praveen not being discussed by Cabinet, but I'll be very surprised if Cabinet didn't consider the seriousness of these charges vis-a-vis the damage that this announcement has caused to the economy in terms of the volatility of our currency. Can you tell us what Cabinet's view on this is?
Back to you, DG.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. The first question, Pete and Robert McBride, it was not discussed at Cabinet. On the issue of SABC, in the previous Cabinet, we discussed it extensively. In the last post-Cabinet briefing, I explained in detail the position of Cabinet on the issue of SABC, which was widely reported in the media. There's nothing more to add to that. We're just giving an update of what has transpired now. So let's allow the situation to unfold in terms of the law, Section 15A of the Broadcasting Act. That's where we are at the moment. Cabinet continues to act as a collective. That is why even the statement is a collective reflection of what Cabinet has done. Cabinet still continue to lead in the state-owned companies. That is why the IMC on state-owned companies is led by the Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa. On the issue of the bill on hate speech, it is simultaneously being released by the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development for public comment. On the issue of optimum rehabilitation, it was not discussed. On the issue of task team, I've explained that when the President appointed the task team last week, after that, we had interactions with various stakeholders and been reporting to the President and to Cabinet. And on the basis of that, the President has decided to broaden the composition of the task team also to include the Minister of Finance. In any event, even before he was included, I myself and the task team have been interacting with the Minister of Finance, because in our first meeting, interactions with the stakeholders, they were raising these issues that I've highlighted in the Cabinet statement of options of funding for this higher education. So those teams, as I've highlighted, there's a technical process that is already underway that includes the Department of National Treasury. So his not being in the task team does not mean that he was not being part of this effort, because this, as I've said, the issue of education is everybody's responsibility, not only of government, also within government also. There are many stakeholders who are not part of the task team. For an example, Minister Mutsecha, but she provides very valuable information to the task team, and from time to time will be called upon, and others as well. On the issue of charges, let me reiterate, we never discuss charges. We just discuss the principle that is based on our Constitution, that the Minister of Finance is innocent until proven guilty. The cabinet supports him. That's why he will be delivering the medium-term budget policy statement on the 26th of October. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I think that brings that to an end. Minister, what I'm going to do is just to allow Sally to interact.
No.
I'd like to give Sally the opportunity to interact in your absence. You don't need to participate in that. Thank you for the time. The question that had been raised by colleague, perhaps Brigadier could respond to that, and it related to some of the operational issues that were on campus.
Thank you very much. The question was regarding...
Well, you are with the Midday Report. Good afternoon, bringing to you live that cabinet briefing from Pretoria. There, the Minister, Jeff Radebe, speaking largely on the fees issue and also answering a number of questions on the fees issue from journalists. The Minister saying that cabinet supports all efforts to save the academic year, or 1 million matriculants will not be able to enter the tertiary system. He also said that government is evaluating several proposals put forward to address the fees issue, saying that government will subsidize the fee increase of up to 8% to cover poor students as well as the missing middle. He's also said that cabinet is urging students to return to class, that there's no room for violence and intimidation. And he also said that they are aware that there is a criminal element working behind the scenes of these fees protests, which he says they are trying to eliminate. So really largely about the fees issue there, but also touching briefly on the SABC board and the finance minister and his